Hello, this is Ed, and I'm in San Diego. And welcome again to Global TV Talk Show. We have James Moss coming in. Let me open the door. Okay, so we have a great cast of characters here today. This is all about storytelling, so get ready, buckle up, as you would say, Ron. Ron Cooper is a consultant, executive consultant, and on leadership, and uh, his he was the original Maverick, in my view. The the person that built the Tom Cruise character for the movies, a, a fighter jet leader and squadron manager or leader. What's the right way of saying that, Ron?
Squadron Commander.
Got it. Great. Well, welcome. And with us as well is James Moss. He just joined. Hello, James.
Hi Ed, hi everyone.
Okay.
Hi, James.
We'll go around in a minute. And this is Dr. Ken Lloyd in LA. James Moss, a good friend it sounds like he's from London, but he's in New York, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay. And this is John Verico, who's in where are you? You're in York, Pennsylvania?
York, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah. And in Toronto is Larry Linton.
Hi,
Yeah,
everybody.
okay, and we'll be joined by a couple of others sooner or later. This is about storytelling, and it's already started, but I pushed the button to record it. So, James Moss, do you have a few minutes to tell us about the merger that you're involved with, Curzon and Absolute, and what that
Yeah,
means? And so he's in a real estate, executive real estate role, dealing with rich people in London who want to buy in New York. Oh, and maybe vice versa, but it's really coming from there to here, right?
yeah, that's it. Yeah, sure. I'll take a moment just update everyone. So I'm just fiddling around with computers trying to get everything to work. Being a technologist, it's always
Yeah, me too.
always
I
a
forgot to
handicap.
push the button.
So
That
yeah,
is step number one.
yeah, right. Um, Yeah, so very briefly, just to sort of recap for people. So I do real estate and I do relocation, and I've been doing that for about 20, 25 years. I'm originally from London, and my original corporate relocation company was called Curzon. I've had a name before then, but we were you have to go back a bit now. I've had to go back quite a long way, but in 2012 we were the European Relocation Company of the Year. And 2013, we were the runners-up. We should have won, actually. Somebody won who we never heard of since. And 2014, that business was sold. We had someone who came along and was very keen to acquire us, so that was fine. We did that. So I kept the real estate side running in the meantime, which is really a private client business and property management business in London. And 2016, moved to the United States, where I've always done business. I actually was at university here like many decades. We're talking decades now, Ed, ago.
That was Boston
Um,
College?
yeah, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, yeah,
Loved a
right.
couple of great
Yeah,
years there.
yeah.
Boston, wonderful, wonderful city.
So I used to, that's where I grew up, and I actually had a home that was maybe 2 miles from the campus.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
great,
right in Chestnut Hill area.
great. I used to play rugby there because there were lots of expats kicking around, and we wanted a good beating up on a Saturday afternoon. And I also played American football, strangely enough. I mean, not that I'm the biggest guy in the world, but it was a real education. Played on a league team, and the most terrifying game. I mean, we played it. We're in a local league. We lost every game. We're a house, a student house with skinny kids, right? And we
So did you
lost.
wear equipment, or did you go naked?
No, it's just like rugby, no kid at all. You just sort of rocked up and hope you didn't get killed. Um, and we fought. We fought. It felt like a battle, I have to say. This local team, which comprised entirely of Boston bouncers,
Yeah, well,
and they were all
no offense out there, but the
yeah,
Irish kids
they
were
were Irish. They
the
were monsters.
brutal,
No, I
brutal.
love
Yeah.
the Irish, but God, they're tough.
Yeah, but they didn't love you.
These guys were no exception. And I tell you, I thought I was going to die. I mean, I was sidestepping, pulling shirts over people's heads. I mean, the whole thing was a pandemonium. We had a great time. We had a couple pints with them afterwards. You know, they were really good fellows. But anyway, so I'm absolutely digressing. I have no idea
No,
why.
we're storytelling. It's unscripted.
But anyway, so I've been in the States for about 8 years now, and operate Curzon over here. I brought Curzon over, and Curzon do two things. We do real estate still. I mean, really more London-based than I say London-based in terms of traditional sort of property management and stuff. But also we're brokers here in New York and in Connecticut, and shortly we have arrangements in New Jersey, and we'll be doing that directly fairly soon, I think. And we have a relocation business over here. And our emphasis is actually very much on technology, and that is Curzon Reader. So the merger that you referred to is Curzon came over, as, if you like, as the sort of mothership, best way to describe it, bit Hollywood. And then the technology side of relocation actually was a separate entity at that point called Absolute Relay. And Absolute Relay got quite a lot of traction. But you know what? It was just messy. And we had Curzon doing this and Absolute Relay doing that. And in fact, so what we did is we basically have brought Absolute Relay. We've changed the name to Curzon Relay, and we brought it under the Curzon family. And
So, I remember before you got involved in all these machinations, you had more hair.
We all did, Ed. We all did.
No, not John. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes barber trips a bit more affordable, I guess.
So the last time you were on the show was about a month or so ago, if I remember right, and we did a shtick about the types of real estate people are buying. Londoners who've got assets and they want to deploy money into the U.S. Or they did before, maybe they still will. And so these are pretty fancy places that you've been involved with.
Yeah. In terms of real estate, both in New York and London, we tend to, deal with fairly good quality properties. In the relocation side, we tend to, I'll give you a feel for the average rents. We sort of, most of our stuff is 3,500 to 4,000.
Yep, we have voices.
This is fun.
Okay, who's got a radio on? What's happening?
This is really interesting.
I know what's happening here. Uh-oh, is somebody? Maybe it's the Russians listening. Okay, so tell us about the dollar volume. It was
Do
like
I,
really.
It's like the good old days when you were on the phone and you got to cross lines.
Would you like me to say something, Ed? Or is this
It's like the old party lines.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I can't hear what's going on.
Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Fish out of water there.
Trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay, we need to move on. So I want you to meet John Verico. He's the guy with the hair. And
Oh, come on. Now Ron and
No,
Ken
I
have
mean,
got good heads of hair there. You got hair.
I've got hair.
Larry's got hair. But
He might be a really good John. He might be a customer for you for one of these PR pages that you're marketing. What do you think, John?
Well, I've spent the last 42 years helping people tell stories. So no matter what that story is, and it's really important to get the word out. I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, the whole idea of marketing is to get your word out and to get people to know who you are and what you do. And I've focused mostly on telling government stories, because when I started in this business, I decided I didn't want to just make some CEO rich by communicating their stuff, but I'm happy to help them do that, you know. So I really focused my energies on telling the stories of people who were working in government, and I'm not talking about the political people. They get enough press, and actually too much press. And unfortunately, it has an effect on the real work that goes on in government. And the same thing happens in corporate America as well, right? The a product gets the attention, but the work that goes behind it doesn't. And so I found that when you can tell the story of the people who are doing the work, the people who are looking for these relocations, you're telling those individual human stories. They're things that people can connect to, and then all of a sudden, it starts to make sense to do business with them. People don't do business with businesses; they do business with people. And we all want to work with people, right? We trust people. We don't trust a corporation. And so we want to know about the people who are being served. We want to know about the people who are providing the service. And we want to know about them from a human level as much as possible. And those are the kinds of stories that I think help to sell anything. And I'm sure you know that too, James. I mean, you're talking about, you know, you're trying to help people to use relocation services, and you want to show them the individual success stories of people who have made these great transitions and bought these wonderful properties or renting these wonderful properties, and how it's improved their life and how easy your company made it for them, but not your company, how you made it for them as an individual because you cared and you did stuff. And so, so that's the kind of stuff that I do when I work with clients is I help them to find those individual human stories that'll connect with other humans.
So that's exactly what I was reading up in prep for this thing. I was reading the difference. It was about branding, of course, but there's a professional brand and the personal brand, and merging it together. So that's exactly what I think you were getting to. And we all have a story to tell personally, but many people are gun shy about talking about themselves, particularly women, but not all. And Larry Linton is an attorney, originally from Cape Town and some time in New Zealand, been in Toronto many years.
Wow.
With an attorney involved with immigration, I believe, with PwC.
Right.
Yeah, and
Well, formerly from PwC, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But a fascinating topic, and really, I'm on the relocation on the people side. But when you talk about storytelling, I mean, I've been a corporate immigration lawyer for 30 years, and that's a career in and of itself. But behind that, or within that, I've been living with Parkinson's disease for the last 13 years, and that has shaped the way I deliver my services these days. And the storytelling behind it has, I think my experience has made me a better immigration lawyer because I'm, you know, the disease that I was given gave me pause to recalibrate how I was living my life. And when you talk about, you know, telling a story and resonating with people, I think it all comes down to the authentic side of the person to deliver the product and to sell a product. And I think that's what I'm quite happy about because it's no longer, you know, just selling immigration services. It's everything combined with what my personal life is and how that has impacted the way I sell immigration services. So great topic.
So, and you're also an author of a book called Shake It, Not Stirred.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, and you got, because you had some tremors,
Right.
you learned how to play the drums.
Yes, I've always been a frustrated drummer, and I took to drumming when I was dealing with the physicality issues, which are now under control. But I do a lot of exercise. Over summer, I completed 500 kilometers in 5 days.
Wow.
And I take less medication today than I ever did at the first couple of years because of my extensive exercise. So I am living as well as I can while other scientists and clinicians are looking for a cure. And I tell my story authentically, and it seems to resonate in the community. I'm very involved in the Parkinson community, both as an advocate and as a board member of Parkinson Canada, sharing my story and just trying to live as best quality of life for as long as possible under the
Okay, guys,
circumstances.
I want you to
Larry,
use the chat and introduce yourselves with contact information, because that'll be an ROI, a measurable ROI going forward for everybody. Yes,
definitely
please.
want to do that. Can I say something, Larry? You know, you're very inspirational, and I've been doing a presentation, a program on personal resilience called Shaken Not Stirred. And of
Brilliant.
course, I make reference to, of course, you know, James Bond's preference for martinis, but I think I'm going to make reference now to you and your book instead.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's great.
And I'd love to learn more about it too. So
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
let's
Thank you.
quickly go to Ken Lloyd. Dr. Ken Lloyd, welcome again, sir.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here and see all of you. Larry, I'm just so moved, and you know, John used the word inspired by your words. The strength, the focus, the resiliency that you've demonstrated. It's so easy for people to talk about that, but I can see how you would be extremely persuasive and influential by having experienced this and then sharing not just your thoughts and not commiserating, but saying, look, this helped me learn more about myself, be more of who I am, and cherish each day of my life to do more. It's wonderful. And you know, when I think of stories, yeah, you know, that the story, but so much more than a story. I mean, this is a history. This is an insightful understanding of what you've experienced, and it's not a light story. It's a very moving set of experiences that you've shared with others, and obviously with others beyond our group. And I think it's wonderful. And I can see how you just have a great impact on people of all ages. And you've been dealing with this so well for so many years. And frankly, just hope and pray that science does come up with a cure. And the way science and medicine is moving these days, I'm very hopeful that will happen, certainly in the situation of Parkinson's. But thanks for sharing your thoughts. I think they're wonderful.
Thank you.
Ken, why don't you talk a little bit about your new book coming out next month?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I had written a book 15 years ago, a dummies book called Performance Appraisals and Phrases for Dummies. And then the very nice folks at Wiley came to me about a year ago and said, will you do a new edition of that? So I'd be glad to, because so much has happened, you know, from the old days, if you will, of the annual appraisal that everybody feared and couldn't stand and dreaded, to a certainly more frequent appraisals, continuous feedback, a forward focus more on coaching and employee development and career development. And certainly if people are not performing well, they get that feedback, but it's more in the standpoint from the approach of helping them learn, grow, and develop. So the book also includes over 3,000 phrases for managers that are not quite sure how they want to say how a person is performing in a particular area. It includes that as well, not to be used as etched in stone, but as guides. Here's some ways to express your thoughts and actually do so in a developmental way to help your employees continue to grow. It's coming out on December 17th. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Oh, congratulations on that. What a great topic. What was the name of it again? What's the
Performance Appraisals and Phrases for Dummies.
I put that in the chat so I don't have to write it down.
I will do it.
So perspective is everything, right? What does that mean to you, John? Perspective is everything.
Oh my goodness.
This is not rehearsed, obviously.
So yeah, perspective is in fact everything, because if you perceive something as true, then it is just plain and simple. It's hard to convince somebody if they're already convinced about something else. So you have to show things from different perspective. One of the things that was, I'll go back a bit. to a time in Maryland when I was working for the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. And there was an outbreak of a microbe called Pfiesteria in the Chesapeake Bay. And nobody really was familiar with this type of a microbe. It's a category called dinoflagellate. Okay, whatever. And normally it's weird because it changes its form. And so normally it's an algae eater. And then at some point it decides, I need a nutrient. Just like we go, hey, I need some vitamins, or I need, a supplement. And so we start taking, ginger or vitamin B or whatever. This thing goes, okay, I need a supplement. And so it will change its form and release a chemical into the water, which causes fish to stress. When fish stress, they release a pheromone, and that is the trigger for it to change its form, for this microbe to change its form again. And now it becomes a flesh eater and eats the fish. And that's how it adopts its new nutrients, which is kind of freaky. What was happening, of course, was there were fish kills. There were hundreds of thousands of fish washing up on the shores of the Chesapeake Bay. People were freaking out. When the commercial fishermen were catching fish, that were still alive, they had, ulcerating sores on them. Nobody was going to buy them. People were afraid to eat the fish. And so our scientists now are studying this to try to figure out what's going on and how to control this thing. But of course, they're also fascinated because they've never seen anything like this. So they're making statements in the public and to the media about how remarkable and astounding and amazing this microbe is, completely forgetting the fact and looking at it from the perspective of the audience. The audience is terrified. They want to know whether or not it's safe to be by the water, to eat the fish, all that other stuff. And the scientists kind of didn't get around to that important element. And so it was really interesting to watch the dynamic. Once they realized, hey, remember who the audience is, what's important to them, what do they know about this thing, or what do they think they know about this thing, and how can we correct that perception? And so we got out there and we changed the messaging up and talked about, the safety and how to prepare fish without having the microbe cause any problems and all this other stuff. But it was a very enlightening point in time to watch what was happening when people were looking at things from different angles, from different perceptions.
That's pretty good storytelling right off the cuff. That's great.
Well, I like to use examples because, we learn from storytelling, right? That's how our species evolved, was by telling stories, whether it was, cave painting or sitting around in a Chautauqua or whatever. I mean, it was still, we learn through stories and examples.
Ron Cooper?
Ed, I will tell you that, yes, a lot of stories come to mind, just a whole flurry of thoughts. There's James Moss with us with one accent, and then there's Larry Linton with the, as he told us earlier, the voted the sexy voice, and then there's me. And so I've been identified as having an unidentifiable twang in my voice. And but it is a matter of, John, I totally agree with you that definitely assess your audience so that you can develop stories related to your audience. I can tell you in the context of relocation, if my wife were with me right now, her name is Marty, she would tell me that I don't do well with relocation because there's all kinds of boxes and I feel it's just a grouping of mess. I'm unsettled. And she's the kind of person who's very organized, and she would tell you if she were on this call, our best move was when we had an assignment to Germany from the United States, and I left early, 6 weeks early, to look for a place to live in Germany. She was left behind to do the move and everything. And she said it was the best move we've ever had because she had control of what was happening back at the house with the household goods.
You weren't getting in her way.
And I was not getting in the way because I'm the kind of person, oh my gosh, I just see all the mess. And she's a very organized kind of person. So yes, John, that's I was out of the way. So she was happy with that.
Ron, you and Marty sound like my wife and I. She is the super organized one. I am the messy one. I'm super organized. I know everything has its exact perfect place. I just don't have time to either go and put it in that exact perfect place or create that exact perfect place. So for now, it sits here. And for now is forever.
And John, you're right on. I'm not going to take a long time and tell you this story, but when we moved into where we are, I'm the kind of person who knows the end result. Yep, I like what I see, or I can make a 5% modification to it. But if you stack up 40 boxes and expect me to organize it, I don't know where to start. So here I am. I told Marty, you please organize my workshop. Now, there's probably no other man on the earth who would say, my wife, you organize my workshop, but she is so organized. She knows at least how categorically, and she will alphabetize my tools, and so put it in a drawer that way. And I say, well, I may want to make a 5% modification to it, but I wouldn't know where to start if I had 40 boxes in front of me. So end of story. That's just a part of my life.
But see how that story endeared you to people, right? We get to know you, we get to know about you, we know a little bit about your life. And I think that's something that's happened since COVID, when people started doing more of these video calls from their homes and stuff. We started to see people's families, their kids, their pets. And we started to learn about them as human beings. And we actually, even though we were more distant physically from each other, I think it gave us an opportunity to bond more on a human level because we got to see this stuff about them.
Nope, totally agree, John. And then there is a somewhat of a different world that, yep, I've got some insight into, or kind of the foot under the tent. But how do we create a real work environment to where, even though we're geographically separated, we still, let's say, we can be emotionally connected? And so there is a leadership role to that.
So, Ron, in your background as Air Force jet fighter squadron leader, I'm going to make a statement here because I'm looking at something that was just sent to me, and the timing is amazing. So the headline on this, why it's important to do hard things. In other words, not push it off. Do a hard thing first and soft things later. So, Ron, would you like to ruminate on that idea, why it's important to do hard things first?
Ed, I will take that from, and again, perspective. I take that to mean you got to make a decision. And following that decision, stand up, move out, and own up to whatever decision you make, but move out and take action. And so many times it's difficult to take action, make a decision, because, well, if a part of your personality is, no, I'm going to study it for a while, and everything has to be perfect before I make a decision, because I don't know how to correct, or any number of things, but any form of procrastination. But I want to encourage people to make a decision, move out, and nothing is a failing or failure if you consider that personal. As long as you grow through it and from it, you can keep moving on. So that's a much longer story behind that, Ed, but that's my initial perspective of your question.
Thank you. And what about the idea of one person? You delegated that to one person, not to a group, to do a hard thing.
Well, in that, I hope that I have empowered that person to think well and to act on what it is I've delegated to that person. But if I'm supervising that person, it's my responsibility to empower that person to be able to go move forward with what I have delegated to that person. But I own the responsibility of having delegated whatever I gave to that person.
That's it. John, do you want to comment on that?
That you've opened that up. Yeah, I'm actually leaving shortly to go and do a speaking gig in Philly to a group of students who are studying business ethics. And I'm talking about team building and the important elements of team building. One of the most important pieces in there is empowerment. And so the elements we're gonna talk about are the fact that if you're gonna work with people, you got to learn to trust them. right? You've got to trust them that they're going to do their best, and they're going to have to trust that you're going to support them, right? They've got to trust that you're delegating appropriately and all that other good stuff. So after the trust, once you have a trust factor going, then you empower them, like you said, to do the job that you've asked them to do, right? Give them the empowerment to make decisions, to take some little bit of risk, and to actually, move forward and do the things and acquire the supplies and things that they need, come to you if they need more resources, kind of thing. The next piece of that is holding them accountable for the result, right? And then the final piece of it all is that they need to understand that what they're doing actually matters, that it's not just busy work. And if we feel that what we do makes a difference in some way, shape, or form, we know where we fit into the big picture, then we're going to work harder. We're going to feel better about what we do. I was fortunate enough to work in an organization where they took 10% of the budget, or this particular leader took 10% of the budget and put it towards projects that he expected probably would fail. That's a huge risk. That's a big gamble. And his directive was, if this works, it'll be a game changer. If it doesn't work, we'll have learned from it and can do something else. And so what that did was that removed the fear of failure from people, and it empowered them to take risk and to make some some real attempts. And those people worked harder to make those things work than I've ever seen before. And some of those bizarre, real pie in the sky projects actually came to fruition because people took ownership of it. They knew that it made a difference and knew that it mattered. And it was a challenge, and they weren't going to be held responsible if it didn't work because they knew how impossible it almost would be.
John, I'm going to follow up with you, and you and I can work
Yeah.
together really, really well.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So I have to call you sir because you were an officer. I was
Yeah.
enlisted.
So no. Hey, I'm for the sake of this call, it's we're working together in the military role. I believe you're either a combatant or a combat supporter, but we're all working together on the same team.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Now, I'm fascinated by this discussion, and I just want to answer Ed's question and then make an observation, if I could. To answer your question, in my lived experience, adversity is a better teacher than success because of the challenges, and I live by that. I think my challenge and my adversity is not overcoming Parkinson's, but it's living with it and becoming a better person with it. And back to your point about perception, I'm always told how wonderful I look, and people are very complimentary. But the issue is that I live with a chronic, incurable, progressive illness every day. And I do go to gym and I do exercise. And to the general public, people say to me, well, how can you be sick, Larry? How can you be totally disabled when you're running, when you're cycling? And that's the wrong perception. You think, because I don't live my life in a wheelchair. So there's none of the physicalities that people can see. But I deal with this every day. So I think there's a huge opportunity to educate employers about what total disability is, and to educate insurance company who routinely deny benefits because they don't think you're totally disabled. So that's my shtick at the moment, is to get on my high horse and try and educate and show people that I may look good, and I appreciate that, but internally I'm dealing with this every day. So, perception has got to be tested.
A lot of this is attitude of mind and approach. My father had Parkinson's for many, many years, and I looked after him. And you know what? He was in great shape, actually. He was an older guy, and he wasn't particularly fit, and all the rest of it. But his attitude was great, and I think it's Parkinson's is a great example, because they're things that sort of just come your way. You got to deal with them, right? And you find this in the military a lot. And you've got to have the right approach. You've got to have a positive approach. You've got to decide, I'm going to engage with this. I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to roll with it. I'm going to get the best out of it. The one thing I would say, though, which I'm just sort of not against Parkinson's at all, but about the US health insurance system is so dysfunctional. And I think it's appalling, actually. I mean, Anna Britt, I'm from the National Health. I know the National Health's falling to bits and creaking and all the rest of it. But trying to get anything done here in the United States, and you pay these massive premiums. I mean, absolutely colossal premiums. I could educate my kids at school on the premiums I pay for these insurance things. And the number of times around that, and their de facto position, Larry, and you probably run in this, is no. No,
Absolutely.
we're not going to do it. And you say, well, why are you saying no? So, because we don't want to, well, it's not because they don't want to, it's because they want to make more money out of it. So that's my beef with the program today, just to, on the story side. But I think the US, and you know, I'm about to become a US citizen, so not anti-US at all. Okay, just to be clear. Thank you. But
We welcome you with
the
open
health
arms.
system here is decrepit. It's absolutely terrible. Okay, I just rang that out. I'm with you on the Parkinson's, so Larry.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I switched insurance companies because they threw me out, me and 200,000 others, out of the other system because I had an HMO, and they did that, and that system, which was very well funded and prestigious, they didn't want to deal with anything less than PPO or whatever it's called, the next higher up level. And so then I switched into what's called Medicare Advantage, because I'm old, Medicare Advantage, United Health Care, which is a very large company. And it is really the best thing I could have done. That I'm very, very happy with it. And I'll share information with you offline.
Yeah, share it with me too, Ed, because you know
Yeah,
I'm
it's really
of the
good.
age as well. So
Yeah. Excuse me. So I'm looking at this thing here. So I'm online, and people send me stuff like day in and day out, around the clock, to talk about on a show, to help give them PR, free, of course. And I do, because some of it's really good, and some of the stuff that I've been saying the last half hour or so is directly from what I got. And it's just a coincidence that it pops up now. And I knew what to do with it. So this one I just got says 18 brutal life lessons that no one told you about. Well, Ken, what do you think of that? Can you think of one?
Oh, only 18. Hey, I'll tell you, and the golden years ain't so golden, okay? When you're younger, you think about that. Then when you hit them, you have to take the exact kind of approach that Larry is taking, to be positive, confident, upbeat, stay active, keep learning, get beyond your comfort zone, network with new people. Otherwise, you're going to just kind of be stuck in time and frozen, and now you're facing the past. So yeah, there are so many lessons that we thought that, oh, well, we understand this and that. But you know what? The world is changing. We didn't grow up with AI. I mean, I grew up with a typewriter, and we thought, what an advance when we got to an electric typewriter. Oh my gosh. But I remember in high school typing ASDFG space, LKJH 100 times until you learn. We just have to accept the fact that not only is the world changing, which we know, it's changing at an accelerated rate. And I think the biggest impact on lives already, let alone tomorrow, is going to be AI. And adjusting to it, getting some legal barriers to it. What's it going to do for careers, for jobs, for positions across the country and across the world? What's it going to do for international relations? That's just who thought of that 10 years ago. We weren't thinking that. Now here it is. And so to me, it's all, let's face forward, be confident. Larry, you mentioned the word education in there. I think that's really important. We want to change perceptions education, and whether it's through formal learning, learning from others, getting into various groups, taking classes, reading more. I mean, my wife is my life, and she's a librarian.
Well said.
And so there's a lot of reading, and yeah, she's organized, guys. Oh my gosh, yes. Been there, been down that road lots of times. It's great. It's nothing but fun, but we really have to either stick our heels in, face the past boldly, and end up being left behind, or get on board, look to the future, and just be confident that thank goodness we're here, live every single day, and recognize that's such an important part of the journey, and make it special. I had heard, expression, and it was kind of interesting. It was yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. And that's why they call it the present. And I kind of
Oh, I love that.
Wow.
like that whole,
I've never heard of that.
yeah, and that's really what it is. Larry, you exemplify that, and
Thank you.
you're inspirational, as I said before.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
John, I know you got a skedaddle. Do you want to close out with something?
Well, you know, actually, I'd love to follow on with what Ken was talking about constantly learning, and you know, that was something my dad was really strong about. He taught us at a young age, you know, learn something new every day. You know, my father's father passed away when my father was still, you know, like a preteen or early teen. And so dad had to leave school and go to work and help support his mother and his siblings. And so he tried everything, you know, whatever it was. If he didn't know how to do something, he went and learned how to do it just so he can get a job and keep the family fed and all of that. And so he told us, I would prefer if you stay in school, but if you don't, I understand. But whatever you decide to do, don't stop learning. Keep learning, learn something new every day. You know, read a book, meet people. Don't say you don't like something until you've tried it. Don't say you don't like that food until you've eaten it. Don't say you don't like that person until you've given them a chance. And so that's just something that I've lived with, and it's true. Every day I try to learn something new, meet new people, try new things, go new places, whatever I can do to constantly, you know, keep building and keep growing. Because if you stagnate, you know, that's when things go awry. You know, and Larry, you're such an inspiration about how you just work so hard and keep going, and you're doing all this physical stuff in order to combat the disease that other people would have just said, oh, life is over. I'm just going to sit in the wheelchair now. You know,
Yeah,
life is
no, I
not over.
appreciate it. No, absolutely.
You know,
And-
they always say, you know, it'll all work out in the end.
Mm.
And
And when I-
if it hasn't worked out, then it's not the end.
Yeah, absolutely. What I say to people is don't wait for their diagnosis. Don't wait for the day of diagnosis. Live your life as if you've got the diagnosis, and that keeps you in the present. And that's
beautiful
something
thing.
that I live with. Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate it. Your
Ron
comments.
Cooper, you're such a strong guy. I really admire that. And what do you? This is not political, but this like a sea change that's happening in the country, and the election made it abundantly clear the day after the election. When you look at the map, and there's just little blue dots rather than blobs of blue. And yet the pollsters either were paid off to lie, or they're stupid not to have figured that out. And apparently, there were leaders, and this is not political, but it's just a vision, and I'm a reporter and journalist. The leadership of the Harris campaign, I don't know whose fault it was, probably a collective leadership, but they missed it. And they didn't talk about very specific things. I thought some of the speeches that the vice president gave were just terrific. warming and just wonderful. And within that base, within that Waldorf base, that's what that base wanted to hear. And everybody loved it. But the people outside that base that were also going to vote, but not for that stuff. They wanted more hardcore this and that and strength, and rather than woe is me kind of thing. That's my take 2 days after, you know. Ron, I know you probably have a different view, or maybe a magnified view of what I just said and more specific, but I welcome you. The mic is yours.
I would not say it's a different view, Ed. I can assimilate a lot of what's the commonalities, common threads of the conversation we're having. What can we learn from this, irrespective of the party you voted for? But what can we learn from this in terms of people's needs? It's a leadership principle. What do my people in my company need? Do I know them well enough that I can meet their needs? And so it is a bit of forecasting, and or looking forward, and I'm not in any way trying to come across as a soothsayer, but we do need to be able to look into the future and learn from. I admire Larry again for what he's going through, and we can all learn. I always say very truthfully, I want to end the day knowing something I did not know at the beginning of the day. I can learn from Larry in what he's going through that, all right, how do you learn to live with that adversity? And so there's so much that we can learn from each other, that what are the needs that we're addressing? And it's maybe you would, for the X number of people you're addressing right now in that crowd, their need is, but when you're with a different audience, let's say you're posting on social media or something that is, you want to appeal to a different group, well, what are their pain points and what is it you're addressing? And so that you meet their need, as opposed to, I've just have one page of talking points and that's what I'm going to repeat over and over again. And it is, I can get long-winded about this, Ed, but it is a matter of learning and adapting to those we are serving.
Tuning in.
Tuning in, it's exactly what it is. And again, as we learn people, it's not only what they need, but presenting the message in a way that the person can relate to. So, my personality, I can be very strong and dogmatic in some people's view. So I need to tone down when I'm with a different crowd, but I need to be very adaptable.
Yeah.
I think it's another great example of the pollsters messing it up again.
Right.
And I don't think it
Second
just
time.
happens
Yeah.
in the United States. I think it happens around the world, particularly with the global populist movement at the moment, which is, in Europe or anywhere you care to think. And the pollsters constantly cock it up. I agree with Ron entirely. I think they didn't do any of the above. They missed everything. All the swing states, I mean, they got that completely wrong. I think they need to have a good hard look at themselves. I mean, how do you predict the future? Well, you can't. Our pollsters a short-fired thing of doing it in the world of social media and misinformation and untruths and whatever you want to call it. I think they've got, I think one, they've got a pretty hopeless task, and two, I don't think they're very good at it. I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised about the result. It's the elephant in the room, and it needs to be thrown out there. And the pollsters, I think, you've got to have a good hard look at these guys. And it's not just this election; it's other elections as well. I mean, they're constantly getting it wrong, and they're constantly getting it wrong in the wrong way, if you like. They're always leaning to more the sort of liberal side. You don't have to be political in this discussion, but they always seem to be veering off to trying to avoid one side of the conversation almost. So anyway, just throw that out there.
I have to read
I think
more
it's a big
about
problem.
this, but there were some articles that are now coming out that the gambling sites really were spot on in predicting how close this election would be, and frankly, showing Trump's advantage in many areas where the traditional polls missed it. I've only read bits and pieces about it, but I found that to be very interesting, that when people get in and start putting money on the line, and large numbers of people are doing that as a predictive force, was kind of interesting. Certainly more accurate than the polls. I mean, look at the poll in Iowa. What a shame that was. Not in terms of how it came out, but that they could be that wrong. Oh my gosh. But leave it to the gamblers to show us what's really going on in this country.
Also, the British gamblers, the Financial Times ran a story last week ahead of the election day that that predicted a rightward move, and I don't think anybody paid attention, but it was right there on the
Well,
front page.
I think those moves clearly in the United States and the UK, particularly look at the financial markets. And we're capitalist countries, and the United States, the world's strongest economy, and and there's a lot of grassroots down there in the financial sector. I know you're Wall Street and Main Street, but a lot of these Wall Street types are actually quite well grounded, and very conservatively often. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people did ignore it. But there was this sort of groundswell beginning, and everyone sort of went into denial. I mean, I was one of those people. I thought, well, come on, this can't be happening, sort of thing. Sorry, a bit going on here. But anyway, so I just want to, but yeah, it's fairly universal, but it's also shocking. It's slightly, ostrich putting head in the sand a little bit, I think.
So, John, your perspective must be crystal clear, being on the inside for many years.
I'll just say it is frustrating because being a leadership coach and being somebody who's observed leadership styles and techniques throughout my entire career and tried to fight against bullying behavior, I'm just astounded that America has let this happen to itself again. I'll just say it that way. But I really think that everybody in this discussion is absolutely right. They missed the ball. I think the big part of that problem is that the Harris campaign wasn't given enough runway. She really should have been able to get her game started a lot sooner in order to be more effective, and came in immediately on the defensive. There was no time to get out there and talk about what you're going to do. And I think that's the biggest problem is everybody had, was that we didn't get to learn what was going to be done. There were promises, but there was no substance. And so what happened was I talked to several people who said, I've just got to vote for whoever I think is going to do best for my business at this point. And I thought that was very depressing. I think that, like I said, we've missed some opportunities. We missed huge opportunities, but who these pollsters talk to, I don't know. I don't know about you guys. Were you polled about what topics were important to you?
No one asked me.
Nobody, right? So who are they asking?
Right.
And that's the challenge, right? I don't know who they asked to find out what topics were important, but you're right. The information that ultimately was fed to the campaigns, well, obviously missed the ball because they didn't talk to people, I think, and I think they missed that opportunity. Going back to what we said earlier about knowing your audience, what they're concerned about, what do they want, what do they need, what is their problem, how can you solve that problem? Those are all basic communication skills. And not knowing what your audience wants or where they stand on something is the biggest mistake you can have.
John, I'm
And I
going to
think
guess
we made that mistake.
that you and I may be ideologically different, and I like that because I want to learn from different people. But I will say that Donald Trump certainly rallied in places that were, I'm going to say, not strong in the red camp, that is Republican or conservative. But a lot of
Agreed.
people there has thought, okay, well, he's coming into a territory where he represents the minority, but at least he cares enough about me to address my concerns. And the mantra frequently is, it's the economy, stupid, or is it abortion, stupid? And I think the economy clearly won out, although we're in very different camps on those two different topics, or at least abortion. Yeah, there's a group of people who genuinely care about that, but it's every day that I'm at the grocery store type thing, and it's my expenses. That tops the list for a lot of different people. But at any rate, I think
And I think that's why he came out on top,
right on. And
because his side addressed those concerns, whereas the Harris camp didn't.
That is exactly my perception. Right on. You address those concerns, and again, what are the leading pain points? Talk to me. And so I think that's what the public was saying, and they voted accordingly. So in first time in a long time, the Republican candidate won the popular vote as well. So there's some sort of a mandate there.
Yeah,
It's a really clear message, no doubt about it.
I just want to say, from my perspective, looking at it from Canada, I mean, it was quite entertaining, the whole, but we're facing our own general election coming up. But I think the victory of Trump is a credit to his campaign team. I think they addressed the issues. They may not have enjoyed Trump going off script and saying, irrational things, but it's the policies and behind it that I think won the day. But our politics are going to be much more gentle, but I think we are going to have a change of guard up in Canada as well.
I'll say that the one positive that we can say out of all of this is that we have proven that America is the land of opportunity.
Right, absolutely.
That anybody can become president.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right.
And with that, I know I'm going to have to sign off.
Yep.
Yeah, I thank you guys for being on the program. I'm going to do a little editing, not much, but and get it out to everyone later in my day today.
Great. Thanks very much.
And we'll do it again. Thank you.
This
Absolutely.
was
Look
Great
forward to
opportunity. Thank you,
talking
Ed.
with the
John,
rest
I'll
of you
follow
all
up.
over again.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Sarah.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.